Welcome to Community Forum. My name is John Guglieltino, and I'm your host. This evening, we're going to have old friends of the show here, the Community Action Group, are going to be telling us their story. And with me this evening is Executive Director Bobby Poole. Welcome to the show once again.
Thank you very much.
It's been a while.
For having me.
Yes.
Yes.
And for viewers that are not familiar with your operation and yourself, tell us a little bit of background about yourself and how and when you came to Danbury, and then get into the agency and how long you've been there. And
okay.
I know you were involved on the Board of Education years ago, and but as much as you want to say.
Well, I came to Danbury in 1981 with the Union Carbide Corporation.
Okay.
And worked at the corporate headquarters, which is now called the Matrix Center. And so I've been here ever since. And I got involved in community activities, serving on some special committees with the Danbury Youth Services. Then got interested in really the Board of Education and ran for office several times. I served 8 years on the Board of Education. And while I was serving on the Board of Education, I also became active in the Connecticut Association of Boards of Education and became president of that organization after about 5 years. And then the opportunity came down the road to reach out and get involved with the Community Action Committee of Danbury. And that was after I had retired from Union Carbide, and talking to some folks in the community, and there was a challenge there, and they said, I said, how can I help? And so that was sort of like the beginning of this experience with working with the Community Action Agency of Danbury. Started with them in late 2002, and 8 years later,
Still going.
I'm still going.
Now, some of the activities that the Community Action is involved with, daycare, housing, fuel. They have a fuel program. There's training in employment, and there's a food pantry. In no special order, but since winter's coming, what is the fuel program? Okay,
the fuel program that we operate is in conjunction with the Department of Social Services, in conjunction with the Western Connecticut Area Agency on Aging, and we also have some funds that come to us through the United Way from the Federal Emergency Management Agency. But essentially, the federal government as well as state governments created a program that would ensure that homes with the primary heating sources and with the vulnerable populations, i.e. the elderly, young kids under the age of 6, or people who really have a household income of 200% or less of the federal poverty guidelines, could keep warm, okay, during the wintertime, and in some parts of the country during the summertime, so that people would not be challenged from either heat exhaustion or either from freezing.
Right.
So it's for the overall health and well-being of the family during the primary heating seasons, which runs from November usually up through the end of
to like
May.
November 1st to the end of
November 1st, yeah, to May of the following year.
Okay. Yeah, so that's in essence what the fuel program is. It like a subsidy program or an outright, and depending on what your income is, an outright grant. Where you, as the bills come in, you take care of those bills for those months. Is that what basically?
That's pretty much a good description of it. However, one of the things that we do is that we bring households into our agency, and we also collaborate with 19 towns and cities in the northwestern corner, and we work through their social service agencies or either through a designated contracting agency to take applications for households that might be in need. Once we take the application, define that they're eligible, we begin to make awards. However, we don't give awards to the families. Okay.
There's nothing direct.
And nothing direct. We pay the vendors when a household needs oil, was kerosene, bottled gas. They then call our agency, and then we make an authorization to whoever their selected supplier is. So, and then that selected supplier or vendor will then send us an invoice, and we will pay the vendor. There is only one small component of our program whereby a household actually gets a small amount of compensation. Some of our households who rent and qualify, and they have what you call heat included in the rent, and therefore at the max, I think they might get something like maybe $270 for an entire heating system, heating season,
right,
under our program. Now, the Western Connecticut Area Agency on Aging program, that's really focused at the elderly households, in most cases that are 60 years old or older, and the grants are not substantial. In these times when you're paying anywhere from $2.50 to $3 a gallon for heating oil, 100 gallons of heating oil runs through an award just like that.
Yeah.
Last year, we actually served over 5,000 households. At least 3,000 of those households were in the Danbury proper. The other 2,000 households were spread out all over the other 18 towns and cities that we serve. So
it could be any town.
Oh yeah, I said from Ridgefield, Reading, Newtown, all the way up.
There's those stereotypes. Nobody in Ridgefield would need this kind of program.
Well,
yeah.
One of the challenges that a lot of people are aware of when you look at Danbury, which has traditionally had one of the lowest unemployment rates, okay, across the state. It still has an employment rate that is lower than probably the state on a whole. However, what we've seen in our various programs, we've seen households who have not traditionally needed social services assistance who are coming to us now, and we're trying to be what one would call a one-stop shop, so that when a family comes into our agency, we do an assessment of them, and either we provide foundational support to them, whether it's going to be heating, whether it's going to be food, whether it's going to be being able to provide some assistance to keep your housing. At this point in time, some people, because of hardships, whether they're going to be medical or whether they're going to be family, may have to be delaying payments on rent, or if they lose their jobs, and there is a period of time when they're unemployed, and also the reduction in household income from the standpoint of unemployment.
Is that where the housing comes in? Is there like a housing grant if they got a house and they're possibly going to lose the house if they don't get some help?
We have that's one of our programs. If a household has what we call a qualifying hardship, and they can come in and sit down and talk to one of our caseworkers. We have 6 or 7 caseworkers who will interview them, define what their hardship is, define what the kind of assistance we might be able to provide them. In most cases, what we really would want to do with those kinds of households is reach out and do some mediation between either the landlord or the bank or the mortgage company that might be servicing their mortgage. And if we need to provide some financial assistance in order to help them, then there are some funds available in order to assist in that area as well.
Now, you work in conjunction with any other agencies? I know a while back there was some, going back and forth. Sometimes you'd like gang tackle, so a social problem in a family or whatever. There might be Salvation Army would take an initial intake and then say, hey, there's there's more of this. It could be more of what you need is going to be over at Community Action than any place else, and so they might send it up to you. And then again, there might be something that they can provide that maybe you'll say, we'll take you up to here, but they can take care of things beyond this point, or counseling. Maybe another agency has counseling that you don't do as much in your place.
We collaborate with in excess of probably 40 agencies in the greater Danbury area. A prime example of collaboration is that with the Hispanic Center, okay, of the greater Danbury area, we actually have a program that we are sort of like a fiduciary on the program with them, and we provide some financing, and they provide some services, information and referral. They do some translations. We have people of Hispanic ancestry and bilingual individuals within our agency. However, we can facilitate whatever those needs might be, whether it's going to be food pantry situations, whether it's going to be child care, whether it's going to be assisting with housing. We work with the Association of Religious Communities. Many times during the year when you get out of the primary heating season, during that primary heating season, many households are covered by what you call a winter moratorium. And so if they run into hardship, there won't be any disconnects or stop termination of utilities. Once you get outside of that winter moratorium area, then we start to deal with individuals who might still be experiencing hardships. And so we'll collaborate with the Association of Religious Communities from the standpoint of helping individuals transition through the what could potentially be a shutoff of either electricity or utilities. The other agency we work with directly is Danbury Youth Services, providing funding for let's say case management and clinical assistance to youth. Okay. Amos House. Okay. Many times families may come in and they might need some place to stay on a short-term basis. But the other thing that we also do with Amos House is that we've been able to look at hiring some of the families that might be going through their program, so that it provides a source of income as they seek to stabilize their situation.
Is that your training and employment program?
That was one of the situations, but really in this case, in a specific case, we actually hired a fantastic employee who came with us, who was actually a resident of Amos House at that point in time, and the individual has turned out to be a very, very tremendous asset. Yeah. Okay, and we have through the Training and Employment Initiative, we've done a significant number of training activities with the Culinary Institute, which is located in New Milford. Over the past 9 months, we've actually supported in excess of 15 individuals going through a 10 to 12 week program, and out of that program they come out of it with a food service handler's certification, and they are probably equipped to work in anybody's a restaurant
or a store, that handles food.
Oh yes. Yeah. And one of the other training initiatives that we got involved in was working with the Danbury Training Center, and where we were assisting individuals in becoming certified nursing assistants or primary patient care technicians. Opportunities and job fields that are in demand because they are affiliated with the healthcare industry. And so whether they're going to work in a hospital, whether they're going to work in a doctor's office, or whether they're going to work in an elderly home care type situation, or either a group home type situation, those training opportunities and those skills that they learn in those programs are going to be, very valuable.
How does the food pantry work on this? In other words, if people are going through your training program, they're not up to snuff yet, so they're subsidized, or you help subsidize those people?
Here's another a significant collaboration, and I could probably chat with about this for a while. We are an approved shopper with the Connecticut Food Bank, and so we can go to their food warehouse and buy a significant number of non-perishable in some cases, as well as perishable when you start talking about meats, okay, and poultry and things like that. We don't really provide any fresh vegetables, and that's probably one of the challenges. But we run a food pantry out of the Fellowship Hall at New Hope Baptist Church. And so between the hours of, let's say, 1 and 4 p.m., on every Thursday afternoon, any family can come in. We'll process them from an assessment standpoint, and we usually give each family enough food to last for the number of meals that size of family would require for at least 3 days. Now, in the greater Danbury area, you have several other food pantries, and what we seek to do is we seek to collaborate with those food pantries, like St. James.
So nobody has more food than they need for the week?
Well, what we want to do is we want to make sure that there aren't any gaps in the needs of families, okay, while at the same time making sure that the greatest number of families that might be in need can be taken care of. So, and
you were saying St. James, and I know Salvation Army does.
Salvation Army,
yeah.
Okay, and Interlude also runs a food pantry, and every year at this point in time we are in the process of prepping for and registering families for what we call our holiday baskets, and we make sure that a family has the turkeys or the hams and all of the trimmings that are necessary for them to have a very, very nourishing meal for their family for Thanksgiving. And then we turn around and we do the same thing for the Christmas holidays. So we hope to serve somewhere in the neighborhood of 500 families for the Thanksgiving holiday baskets, and something probably somewhat less than that. But we also collaborate with other agencies even in doing that, because, again, what we would like to do is make sure that the largest number of families who really have a need are going to be taken care of. So we kind of share the information about who we register and who we serve, so that we can make sure that all of the commodities that are donated by very, very generous organizations within the community can...
All the local stores, you could say, right?
Well, our friends at A&P Fresh Market,
Stop and
Shop,
Big Y,
Stu Leonard's, Omaha Beef, they all play a role in helping us make this success. If it's not in providing the protein components of it itself, Omaha Beef has been a fantastic partner from the standpoint of allowing us to store products in their freezers as we pull together the products and prepare to put the baskets together. So within our food pantry operation, we will serve in excess of several thousand families on an annual basis.
So, you think in Fairfield County you wouldn't have this. That everybody's wealthy or relatively wealthy compared to the other counties.
Come on, John. You know...
well, I'm saying with some people in Bethel or Richfield or west side of Danbury, they might have that illusion that things are not that bad around here. They'd probably be surprised.
Oh, yeah. They would be surprised that in the state of Connecticut, we are constantly seeing what one would call a gap between those that have and those that do not have.
The bottom 80%, so to speak.
Right. And so our demands are constantly growing. As I said, over 3 years ago, I think we did a total of about 3,000 households for energy assistance. Last year we did over 5,000. We would probably expect to do over 6,000 this year. And that's just beginning to, I guess, hit the tip of the iceberg, because probably there's twice as many households out there that we serve that would qualify for these kinds of assistance, and some people just choose not to apply.
Find other ways, which could be mom or a dad or
They find
relatives helping, and a lot of people have gotten into hard times and moved back with their parents.
That's true.
Or even older people have moved in with their grandparents, or with their parents rather. They've got their family, their kids, and you have a lot of that people are not aware of.
Right.
Because it's a big house anyway, and how could two families be in that house? Well, it's a bigger house.
Yes. Well, I think one of the other things that probably people aren't aware is that there are many individuals, and most of these are probably elderly individuals, who are very frugal. And so when you go back and you look at the thermostat settings in their homes, they're probably
They're at 65
at the lowest point,
yeah.
and they have on sweaters and additional garments in order to conserve from the standpoint of the energy costs during the winters. So, a lot of our elderly households will move in that direction, and probably because they have some generational experience. These people may have come out of.
They were in the Depression, or at the end of the Depression. They might have been kids when the Depression is going on, but they still remember how their parents
survived.
Yeah.
Right.
So they got that experience of saying, I'm not going to get in that situation. I'm going to conserve even when I don't need to conserve. And so they've got more resources than their kids and their grandkids.
One of the other programs we haven't really talked about is
daycare, right?
Right.
Yeah, and that dovetails into this, and families going back into their parents' household or whatever.
Right.
That's a big demand.
Our daycare center is located at 75 Balmfort Avenue, and it's called the Action Early Learning Center. We have infant toddlers, probably from about 2 to maybe 2.5, up to kindergarten age, 5 years old. And in most cases on the kindergarten age, we also provide services to individuals who may be on what we call the half-day kindergarten schedule in the city of Danbury. But we've got 125 slots, and the waiting period is usually extensive, because in the greater Danbury area, you have probably something in the neighborhood of 300 to 400 children who are on waiting lists and looking for an affordable early childhood education experience. Early childhood education services are not in private centers inexpensive. It can run anywhere from $250 to $350 a week. Okay, and so our program is supported by the School Readiness Program. It's supported by the Department of Social Services, and our families pay for those services on a sliding fee scale based on the household income. And so as your income rises and falls, okay, we can make some reassessments and try to address that fluctuation or that hardship that a family may be experiencing. But I would say that it is a constant scenario of people coming in, applying, going on a waiting list, and they may very well end up being on a waiting list for anywhere from 18 months to 2 years. So we encourage people, if they want to consider our daycare center, that they come in as soon as possible and get on the waiting list.
Yeah, especially if they're just making do and they're thinking, well, maybe this what I'm doing right now is going to run out in 2 years. Well, you know, you're probably on the mark. It'll take you 2 to 3 years to get in. Yeah.
We do make some what one would call hardship exceptions, and we work with state agencies like Department of Children and Families or either the Department of Social Services. If indeed there are some extreme hardship situations, referrals coming from them, we tend to give them some priority.
Now, you're in your literature, there's a proposed fatherhood initiative courses program. We've got about 2 minutes. Does that suffice to at least hit the top?
Oh yeah. Well, I think we can talk about that. One of the things that we know is that a child who is raised in a environment where the father as well as the mother is involved in their overall early childhood development, we know has a very has a greater chance of being successful. And so what at a national level and at a state level, a program called the Fatherhood Initiative was put together. And so we started in early January of this year working on the Fatherhood Initiative, and basically what we wanted to do was make sure that fathers who were non-custodial parents, okay, could do things that would increase the amount of time and interaction with their children. And one of the things that we ended up doing, this is an example of how we collaborate with the agencies. We went to the we went to the Y, and we said, hey, you know, you've got some up in the Great Hollow Wilderness, so you've got some facilities where you could do some team building and get some kids to develop some self-confidence in themselves.
So you developed a course program. They're telling me we got 30 seconds left. Do you have a telephone number for your agency if somebody wants to give you a call?
Of course, 203-744-4700.
Here's the thing I don't know. Do you have a website?
Yes, we do. We have a website, www.cacd-caa.org.
All right, thanks for coming on the show.
Okay.
I want to thank the viewers for tuning in to the Community Forum. Tune in next week, same time, same station, and we'll have another interesting program. Good night for now, and we'll see you then.